All right. Hello, everyone. This is the Static Site Editor weekly product and design uh, sync call, and it is September 28th on the East Coast of the US, September 29th in Australia, where Michael is. But I think actually a couple of our topics are related. Do you want to just talk about your first question in the product section of the agenda, Michael?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that's been on my mind is that now that we've been tackling some of the core, flow and functionality interactions with the static site editor, and now that we're in the handbook, it looks like we have a clear path there. But one thing that's a little bit uncertain for me is like thinking beyond that or thinking big. So one of the things that we talked about a couple of months ago was running another Think Big session. And I was just wondering if you wanted to collaborate on that. We could like bounce ideas off each other and something like that. And yeah, maybe you could verbalize your response to that.
Yeah, and I think we must have had a very similar train of thought right before this meeting because I added in the design section a topic that's generally related. But so my answer that I have in the agenda, but also my take on that is I had planned on creating a Think Big brainstorming session. I wanted to structure it more like journey mapping or story mapping. And then I got bogged down on trying to make this maybe too much of a formal process, which I think is a very valuable format. And I think I just tried to do too much prep. And so there was always something else that came up and I'd kick the can and try and get to it the next week. I still have the to-do list item on my list. I was wondering if you thought maybe one way to alleviate that, aside from, yes, of course, I'd like to collaborate on it, but what if we did it monthly? I think that's probably as frequent as we would need it, but just like maybe a monthly, everyone that can attend should attend brainstorming. Sometimes maybe we'll get into the more specific journey mapping, but sometimes we'll be a little more broad. We can mix up the structures, and that's where we could collaborate to find something that's the most effective. But I think I was putting too much like importance on a single session that needed to do everything and set us up for like the next quarter or more. And that was it felt like a lot of pressure to, not like anybody was imposing that on me, but as I looked at the task, I was like, oh, I need to get this right. Like if we did it more regularly, it might be a little more casual. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea because I think if we do it monthly, it kind of aligns well with our cadence of milestones. So perhaps it's like looking at like the next milestone and beyond, or like instead of a 6-month window, it might be a 3-month window that we're looking at. And I think one area that we already started looking at is your jobs to be done document, and perhaps using that as a starting point. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think one monthly will be a good goal to try to do it. I know that you have other responsibilities and other things of planning and prepping, so that's already taking up a lot of time. Hence, I think maybe collaborating or putting the pieces together or like collaboratively as a group. So not just you and I, but also Jean and our other engineering team members could like collaborate on that as well. So I think maybe asynchronously get all the info together and then running a session to talk about it. So perhaps even those issue refinement sessions work really well, but we can find a time that works for you. So
Mhm.
if it needs to be an hour later or something, I think that's totally fine for myself to attend those times. So
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah. Generally, yeah, when we do the issue refinement, if we could push it in the by a half an hour, I should be home by then, and that would be a good target. I would like to. You bring up a good point about just like PM responsibilities and monthly cadence. just trying to follow that train of thought. So if we have a release on the 22nd, we've shipped something, and presumably in the process of shipping that, we have learned something, and we have already prepared for the next milestone, which we would have planned previously. At this time of the cycle, this is the 28th, it's relatively quiet, where I'm early planning for the next milestone. The issues aren't yet like needing, it's not necessarily that they're fully refined, but they're already kind of themes emerging about what we want to accomplish. But I don't necessarily have to do like a kickoff video or anything yet. So I guess what I'm saying is maybe this first couple weeks of the month would be a good target time frame to hold it. Looking at the schedule for next week, and maybe like Wednesday, because we have a Thursday social call, maybe like Wednesday the 7th, which would be your Thursday the 8th, might be a good morning, evening for you, or night for you. So yeah, maybe let's I'll just get something on the calendar for that day, and then we can collaborate async on an agenda and just throw around some ideas for a format, and just keep it to like an hour, or like a tight 50 minutes, and we get done what we get done, but it's a place for everybody to share.
I think moving forward, like the week following a release, so like the week following like the 22nd would probably be the best time for like the regular kind of thing. Next week, I think the 6th and 7th, I don't know what the exact time is, but the Jamstack conference is on those days. So I don't know if there's an overlap. So like me and time zones are like disastrous, because I live in a weird zone. So we probably just need to double check against that one. But other than that, I think it should be fine. I think an hour after the usual issue refinement will work well.
Okay. I'll take a look at that. Jamstack that's right. I didn't sign up for any of the paid sessions, but I'm going to be doing the day one, which is Tuesday, I believe. Let's see. Yeah. So Wednesday the 7th, when I was thinking, it's possible that some of our team signed up for those. So I'll double check. So yeah, I think that sounds good, and segues well into the question that I had, which is, what are your thoughts on, as a design exercise, or just as a maybe input or output of these Think Big sessions, doing some kind of vision mock-up, or mapping out some potential journey to highlight where we would want to be in a year. I'm not inclined to ask for like super high fidelity or like clickable prototypes or anything, because I think that can get in the way of iterative releases, and we can end up committing to something that, after a few iterations, we actually want to go in a different direction. So I understand the risks in like high fidelity vision work, but I do think it would be helpful to be able to share visually what's in our mind, rather than pointing to the direction page, which can be wordy, or showing 3 or 4 different epics that might have various levels of design work done.
I think this is a really good idea. I think if we kind of tackle it as like one issue, as in like, here's our monthly issue around thinking big, these are the overall themes, and then as a part of like one of those tick boxes or something is like a wrap up thing. So that's part of the wrap up, whether it's done in screens or video, that's up to the discretion of us, seeing where we're at with that. But I think that's a great way to not only document it in an issue, but also have it in a separate form of communication, such as a video where, like posts that the next day I could like do something over the next 2 days and just say like, hey, here's the screens for that. And, either you and I can talk about it. And then, yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
That's really interesting. Actually, I put together that they were related, but having that as like an output of the Think Big session where you could take what we just talked about, what you have in your head and what we've talked about before, and time box it a little bit and make it so it's not quite so precious and not so much a vision artifact, but like this is like I'm illustrating one potential flow through things, and it's very forward looking, so you don't need to like go through and make sure every like UI pattern matches what it is today. It could be like, well, let's think about something over here, or let's pretend we're using a different type of menu here. That could be a little freeing, but also prevent us from getting too deep into it and spending like a month on something that then we end up throwing away.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Okay.
Cool.
Well, yeah, let's keep working on a format and maybe open an issue for the Think Big session, and we can just work on the format in that. And that can be the outcome, or sort of like an exercise outcome.
Yeah.
I would say for anybody watching this on the team, on the engineering side, also from there, if there were like little proof of concept engineering challenges that came up where you're like, oh, I wonder if we could do that. And it didn't take like, a week to do, or you did it, I'm not going to encourage anybody to work overtime, but you know what I mean? Like you did it on your own while you're waiting for a merge train or something like that, so you have 45 minutes, you can mock something up and build a little quick proof of concept, then that would be a great output as well. Something like, just in a snippet, or like a single bit of code that you could run and demo a feature. That would be really awesome. Cool. Well, I'm excited about that. Thanks for bringing that up, because I was feeling guilty that I never scheduled the Think Big session. And looking back, it's, as we've talked about in various meetings and retros, it's just because I wanted to be over prepared, and that becomes a blocker to getting anything done. So good to move forward fast on this. So on the UX research section, you've got a couple items.
Yeah, so this week we're kicking off solution validation for associating changes to existing MR. So we have, I think, 4 of the 5 sessions booked and confirmed. So that's good. So happy to get that going. And then the other thing that I want to talk about is up on the radar for 13.6 is a problem validation around editing beyond the handbook. Like where else do we take this, or what other areas? The reason I bring this up is because it's on Catherine's like radar for 13.6 that she's probably going to allocate some time for it. Should we revisit this after our session next week and say, I think that might make more sense if we are thinking of doing a Think Big session next week, then perhaps we put off this for 13.6, or like we'll like add the details of what we want to do next week for this. I think that, that makes more sense, because right now it's kind of sparse, but I think after next week's session, I think we can have a more informed discussion about what we actually really want to tackle in that problem validation.
Yeah, I agree. And I think maybe if anything's changed, I would shift this research more to editing opportunities based on the input that we're getting from the new editor architecture than I would any kind of like distinction between CMS and like how we integrate with live editing versus CMS or something like that. Because I'm looking at the issue now and I'm remembering sort of the mindset that we were in when we were planning this one. And I would say that one of the more exciting aspects of the architecture that Enrique has presented is the potential to use it elsewhere in the GitLab UI, elsewhere in the product as a WYSIWYG editor, and understanding the opportunities there would be really beneficial for communicating outward to the other groups, and as well as just like aligning us on like on the real problems that people face when they're editing Markdown in like a issue description or something like that. And I think that that could then follow into like, okay, well now we have this editor. How do you get there? And what are the other aspects of like a CMS versus live page? And we could start evaluating it against the feedback that we're getting from the Netlify CMS on the marketing team. But anyway, yes, I think revisiting this and tightening it up for 13.6 based on the output of that Think Big session and the continued, wrapping up of our architectural exploration sounds good to me.
Cool. That sounds great to me.
All right. Well, that's it for my agenda. Let me just real quick. I don't think there was anything super important that you can't just read through the agenda from earlier. I am planning some PTO at the end of the month, at the end of the, beginning of October, at the end of this week. So just FYI. And there shouldn't be anything, like I said, this is sort of our lull in the product release cycle. So that's good. Yeah, everything's going fairly well. I'm very excited about the progress already on some of the commitments we have for our 13.5 deliverables, and YouTube videos are there's already an MR. It's good to have Jacques back working on that, and Derek's already got some stuff in review, and he's working already on the title and description workflow. So it's great. It's only the 28th.
Cool.
All right. Well, yeah, sounds great. I'm gonna wrap the recording.